53, Roger. There's a launch alert. This is X on guard. Sam, launch.
By the summer of 1964, U.S. carriers were routinely operating near Vietnam in the South China Sea. There had been hostile fire and even aircraft shot down, but no one considered it a war yet. That was about to change. The event that would light off the powder keg of hostilities between the U.S. and North Vietnam was the Tonkin Gulf Incident, which took place over a day and a later night in early August. The conflict had been brewing for years, most of it ashore and in the air, but the fuse was lit at sea. What happened on the first day, August 2nd, was straightforward. But what would seem to take place 2 nights later was much less clear, seemingly shrouded by the fog of war. This is the story of what happened on the first day. Vietnamese forces vanquished the French at Dien Bien Phu in 1954, and that same year, an international conference temporarily divided Vietnam into North and South polities. By August 1964, North Vietnam was anxious to reunify under its own power and domination, and ready to use any means necessary. The United States, not a disinterested party, was a firm backer of the South, had over 10,000 military advisors in South Vietnam, and was guiding South Vietnam in its O-Plan 34 Alpha actions against the North. Although the U.S. was not involved in direct action, the Navy, along with the Air Force, was conducting Yankee team reconnaissance flights into Laos, and the Navy, in covert coordination with the National Security Agency, was conducting ship-based electronic surveillance missions referred to as DESOTO patrols off the coast of North Vietnam. As of yet, the U.S. and North Vietnam were not openly engaging one another in combat, but the scene was set for any act, intentional or not, to launch them into a vortex of conflict. It was Sunday, August 2nd, mid-afternoon in the South China Sea. USS Maddox, a destroyer, was off the coast of North Vietnam conducting a DESOTO mission. 300 miles away, the aircraft carrier USS Ticonderoga was operating at Yankee Station, south of the Chinese island of Hainan and just outside the Gulf of Tonkin. Air Wing 5 was embarked, and the only flights scheduled that afternoon were pilot training hops. The aircraft carrier USS Constellation, with Air Wing 14 embarked, recently relieved on Yankee Station by Tycho, was 450 miles away, enjoying a port call in Hong Kong. Having launched from Tycho, James Stockdale, the commanding officer of VF-51, an F-8 Crusader squadron, was one of the pilots airborne that afternoon. Along with Stockdale, 3 other Crusaders and some A-4 Skyhawks were airborne, conducting 20mm cannon and Zuni rocket target practice. Maddox, while conducting her DESOTO mission, had been receiving communications intercepts indicating a possible attack on her, when radar picked up 3 North Vietnamese patrol boats 20 miles away, closing rapidly. Not wishing a confrontation, Maddox turned to the southeast, increased speed, informed her chain of command, and called Tycho with an urgent request for air cover. Just before 1500, amidst the gun and rocket practice near Tycho, Stockdale was radioed to knock it off and switch up the strike net with the other Crusaders. It was there that they were told the distant Maddox was being menaced by North Vietnamese patrol boats and needed help. Of note, and completely unknown to the aviators, South Vietnamese patrol boats had recently conducted a raid in Maddox's vicinity of North Vietnam, and, unknown to the North Vietnamese, the Maddox was not directly involved with that raid. The Crusaders joined up and took a vector for Maddox. As they climbed in altitude, the most junior pilot, Lieutenant J.G. Dick Hastings, was on Stockdale's right, and Commander Robert Morhart and Lieutenant Commander Eb Southwick of VF-53 were on his left. Knowing there were Chinese fighter bases just north on Hainan Island, they moved into a combat spread formation. Even as the Crusaders tore across the sky, the shooting had already begun between the Maddox and the patrol boats. The patrol boats had closed in and launched torpedoes while firing their deck guns. Maddox had been firing her 5-inch guns, striking one of the PT boats. When Stockdale got within radio range of the Maddox, the flight started their descent and closed up formation. Stockdale checked in with Maddox and was immediately told the destroyer was under attack. 15 miles out, Stockdale could see Maddox. Soon they could make out the hostile patrol boats just beyond her. Maddox radioed Stockdale, "Your mission is now to attack and destroy the PT boats." At 15:30, the Crusaders passed slow and fast over Maddox and headed north toward the targeted boats. At this point, Maddox was heading south, and the North Vietnamese were 5 miles north and starting to turn away to the northwest, back towards North Vietnam. 2 of the boats were in the lead, with the third trailing with possible damage. Stockdale told Morehart and Southwick to take the trail boat. Meanwhile, he maneuvered into a left-hand descending arc to target the lead boats. He would take the left, and Hastings would take the right, hitting them simultaneously. On the first pass, Stockdale launched a single Zuni rocket, missing close to the left. Passing the boat, he could see the crew firing back at him. As Stockdale and Hastings passed the targets, Hastings called out, "I've been hit. My port wing is shot up." Stockdale immediately joined on him, and upon examination could see damage to the wing, but not necessarily from hostile fire. It might have been damage from excessive G-forces. Regardless, Hastings' aircraft was damaged and was out of the fight. Stockdale told him to orbit over Maddox because he had to get back in the fight. In Stockdale's absence, Morehart and Southwick had been working over all 3 patrol boats. The 2 in the lead were now also damaged and had slowed down. The third had just taken a substantial 20-millimeter hosing from Southwick and was on fire, dead in the water, and appeared to be sinking. The 3 Crusaders continued to expend their Zuni rockets and 20-millimeter on the boats until they had run out of ammunition and had reached bingo fuel, the minimum fuel needed to make it back to the carrier. As Stockdale departed the area, he radioed Maddox, "All boats hit. 2 still underway toward the coast, 1 dead in the water and burning." 5 hours later, and literally half a world away in Washington, D.C., President Johnson met with his advisors, and he had told them to downplay the incident in the media. The U.S. reaction will be limited to a warning. When news of this reached Stockdale in the morning, he, along with others, were a little surprised at the passive response, being that it was late in the presidential election cycle and LBJ had been having to defend himself from being soft on communism. Little did Stockdale or anyone else know there would soon be another scrap on the high seas, and this time it would not be so clear as to what happened, and the response would be much more than a mere warning.